Going to begin here in just a second. All right. Welcome, everybody. Another couple people coming on board here. So, my name is Ian Blackburn, and this is another session of Zoom into Wine. I am doing this from home tonight, and hope everybody's doing okay. We've had one hell of a start to the year. It can only get better from here. That's all I can say. So let's see.
Your lips to God's ears, as they say.
Let's hope. Let's hope. Well, we've got some great wines to nurse our pain. Let me see here. So let's see. Damn it. But
Your lips to God's ears, as they say.
let's hope. Let's hope. Well, we've got some great wines to all right. Sorry, hit the wrong button. And I'm gonna hit the wrong button again because on the laptop, everything shows up in weird places. Make sure I'm in the good spot here. All right. Can you guys see this slideshow? All right, let's get going. Each week, we get together with amazing people from all over the place to taste delicious wine. And tonight is no exception. Dessert wine is always a little bit of a challenge to get people to get excited. Those people probably on the Zoom are probably big dessert wine fans. We need more dessert wine fans. And one way to do that is to educate, to inform, and to taste some great stuff. So that's what we're going to do tonight. To kind of set the stage, I want to start off with a wine that a lot of people think is dessert. And that is a great bottle of German Riesling. Now, there is going to be some sweetness here. And I'm not saying we can't have this with dessert. It will be great with cheese. It would be great with something slight, nothing too sweet. Right now, I'm eating quite a bit of kind of winter fruits, persimmons. Make it to the table often. Maybe some papaya, some tropical type of stuff. This wine is not quite as sweet as it might even sound. In the predicate system, this is an Auslese. And basically what we measure when we're making German Riesling is the total weight of the sugar, the Uxla. And we start off with a fresh, young wine, fresh and green. And then we head into a wine that's a little bit riper, a little higher selection. And then we get into Auslese. And Auslese can start to have a little botrytis. And then we get into Baron Auslese, which has full botrytis. And then Trockenbeeren Auslese, which is really, really botricized. Now, what is botrytis? Botrytis is the noble rot. And we have a couple of wines tonight that will fall into that line. This wine has very little noble rot. Let's just calculate and collaborate or calibrate is the word I was looking for. Where we are in the Mosel. This is Grocker Himmelreich, and we are the Mosel is a very specific part of Germany. and it is also very close to Alsace. So when you think of Riesling wines, they're probably within, a 100-mile circle of where the great Rieslings of the world are created. We're going to move on in this slide to learn a little bit about this producer. They've only been making wine for 300 years, 9 generations. And the Germans suffer a little bit from the current fad, but these wines were about as fashionable as you could be in the 1950s, 1940s. These wines sold for as much as all the great wines of France. Chateau Margaux and a great German Riesling were the same price. Things started to change after World War II. The German sweet wine market and all sweet wines really plummeted in popularity, and the dessert wine market has really dried out. And so what we've had is a massive funneling, shrinking, reduction in total number of producers, which can be healthy in some regards, because now what we're left with are really good producers. The river basically carved out these like snake-like corners in the Mosel River, and there are some amazing exposures. You're basically looking at grapes being planted where the snow melts first. And that's really a nice way to know where the minerality, the stoniness will warm up and melt the snow from the bottom almost and up. And you're usually looking at some pretty steep sites as well. And we're talking about, in the Mosel, wines that are grown on slate. So that's where we are here. And we've got some, the Himmelreich translates into Kingdom of Heaven. And this is Riesling. Some of the markers of Riesling are what we want to rely on. And we talk about, the Riesling's great plethora of presentations, from the dry to the sweet. And somebody called me in the office the other day, wanted to talk about dry Riesling. I really think the Australians have not taken over dry Riesling, but now compete for the very best bone dry Riesling. There's no sweetness in those wines. Then you've got some wonderful renditions in Austria. There are some fantastic Rieslings of all sweetness levels in New York. They're growing Riesling in Santa Rita Hills, in Oregon, in New Zealand, and everyone's doing a very nice job. But the benchmarks are in the Mosel, and the Mosel gets the highest marks because of the history of the producers, the quality that they understand, their technique, their terroir. Now, this is a wine that has 88 degrees of Uxla and was fermented. It says noble sweet levels of residual sugar at 75 grams per liter. That's sweet, but not. We've got some wines that will approach 200 grams per liter. So this wine has that backbone finished after alcohol. You probably have, if you're going to make a dry white wine from grapes, you probably are picking at 23, and you're fermenting to 12 and a half, 13, maybe 14. This wine has a finished alcohol of 7.5. So they barely use any of the sugar, maybe 15 grams to ferment into this alcohol. And then the rest is retained. They arrest fermentation when making these wines. because they want to leave some sweetness, and then they want to have the acidity that's naturally occurring from this minerality, the soils, to really come shining through. Let's taste this together. It's around $40 a bottle, 94 points, a really good producer. One that every time I open a bottle of Max Richter, I think it's Ferd Nick Richter, I am always impressed. We see Riesling here that's got just a little bit of age on it. 21 was a particularly interesting vintage. I love what happened in 21. It was a really rainy summer, and dried out nicely. There's a very high selection. They declassified a lot of their very, very, very highest end fruit into making a little more base level wines. And so you got added qualities here from higher tier fruit and conditions that really promote an extra a year of extra noble rot. Pineapple, kind of like golden pineapple, green pineapple, some wonderful mango. Mm. Sweet, but not candied sweet. And feel how the mouth just sizzles after you taste it and dries out. That's what great Riesling can do. And I can drink a lot of this. Um, Give me a barbecue chicken pizza. Give me some tacos with some really spicy accents to it. Give me some Thai food. This can be a winner, particularly with spices, curry, and yes, it could carry over into a dessert course, whether it's cheese or fruits or cookies and sweets, things that don't compete with it. I wouldn't want to put this with a creme brulee or anything with like frosting or sugar coating, but something a little more on the drier side. Any comments about that first wine? What we do here at Merchant of Wine, at Zoom Into Wine, we encourage you to make this your show. Throw some chats, some tasting notes. Ask some questions. I want to interact with you guys and have this be your time to taste and to tell me, hey, I didn't like that. I do like that. This is, what I was expecting. I had no idea what to expect. Whatever it is, this is a great forum to share that, and I appreciate it. Joe, I know Joe from our office. She runs the store. She's on the Zoom tonight. Every time I get some great dessert wine in the store, maybe I got a supplier there tasting me on something amazing, I get Joe involved because if she loves it, I'll be like, yeah, this is good, isn't it? She's the measuring stick. And this one I think carries. Here's what makes Auchlase really interesting is that when you try something a little drier, Spätlese, you don't have the volume. You don't. This has got wonderful palate weight and texture and density. It's a thicker type of an experience, but so that's where you could maybe gauge what kind of foods you would have with it too. You want the foods to kind of come through and not get buried by the weight of the sugar and the sweetness. Yeah, I'm with you, ladies. I see you posting there that you love the pineapple flavor. Uh, a chili chocolate. Well, that's kind of fun. Yeah, you could even yeah, some spices, some salty chocolate, some orange peels covered in chocolate, probably pineapple covered in chocolate would be pretty fun. We move on. I do have a good supply of the Riesling, 23 bottles it says. So, and that's a long-term investment. Getting a good price on an Auchlase at $40. When you shop around, you'll see that that's a particularly nice price. These wines, when they go to make them, as that volume as the grapes mature in the vineyard, the volume shrinks, and so the production cost goes up, supply goes down, and you end up paying more and more as the wines progress through the predicate system. And the next layer up, the wines are pretty pricey in the Baron Auchlase level. All right. Wine number two. Let's do it. We go to another classic. This time we are in France, in Bordeaux, in Sauternes, and a particular part of Sauternes. The folks that make wine in Barsac get to say, uh, all the wines we make are Sauternes, but not all Sauternes are Barsac. Barsac is a little village in Sauternes, and it is a particular spot of punctuated character in Bordeaux, which I'm very pleased to tell you that we are on our way. We've been booking our flight. We're taking a group to Bordeaux. We have 2 spots remaining if anybody wants to come with me. We get there at the end of March. We're there through the first week of April, right before En Premiere. Everybody's going to be in town. It's going to be really an exciting time to be there. And we are going to have an amazing trip. The details are on the website if you want to look into it. We even have 2 more. Those 2 spots could do the VIP package if they wanted. Fortunately, we had a couple folks impacted by the fires, and we had to let them out of the trip, which that's part of the fire situation. So we have done so, and we have already filled 2 of the 4 spots that they were occupying. So we've just got 2 more. We got a few more months before the trip, so I'm confident that that's going to get full. All right. Maybe you're right. Let me check something. Am I tasting the wrong wine? In my slideshow, it went to Daisy. So I want to make sure that I've got the right wine.
In the
And
email, Ian, it's the Jackson Triggs ice wine is number 2.
okay, I'm checking. And is the pour size particularly low on that one?
Yes.
Okay. It does say 2 on the bottle as well. So I apologize. My slideshow's a little out of order. We'll come back to this one. And I know what happened. This was the original slideshow. I did not get the newer link where they modified it. So it's all out of order. That's fun. Not really. Here we go with our ice wine. So let me get my fresh glass. Thank you for catching me on that before we went too far. Wine number 2 is our Canadian ice wine, Jackson Triggs. The wine is made from Vidal, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Jackson Triggs is the second brand that's owned by the Marquis Mark and Domain, which is the folks that own Roeder Champagne. Niagara Falls, Canada, the peninsula of Niagara, Lake Ontario, all these things add to where the location is, a cooler place, a colder place, making wines that grow beautifully until they freeze. This wine is made from frozen grapes. They pick them frozen, they crush them frozen, they leave the moisture behind because they press when still frozen. They are removing the nectar. These vines were planted in and around 2000 when they were expanding the Niagara marketplace. A lot of people think of ice wine, they think German, but German ice wine is really rare. And Canada can really make a great amount of ice wine. So I think it's safe to say that Canada now owns the title as being where ice wine comes from. Sure, the Germans still make it, but they tend to sell it in teeny little bottles for lots of money. And so it's very, very rare and very expensive. And maybe a thing of the past in German ice wine. The Canadian wine market has grown tremendously. Okanagan wine market is huge. And at some point, they're going to bring those wines into America. And they probably need an economic moment, maybe a tariff adjustment, some sort of reciprocal trading type of thing. Because when we send wines to Canada, they tax them heavily. So when basically Canadian wines have a hard time coming in and competing, except at this level, because people will pay a little bit more for the dessert wine category. And these wines come with a very fair level of, the production can be pretty efficient. When you're talking about German ice wine, it's one of the most inefficient wines you've ever seen because they're picking an entire vineyard over again at 3 o'clock in the morning when it's frozen on the vine and the bell rings and everybody's got to go up into the hills and pick by hand. No, you harvest lots of fruit in Canadian ice wine. It's out there, it's beautiful, and all of a sudden it's frozen. And that's the Canadian technique. It works perfectly for what they have and what they do. Now let's talk about Vidal. This is a particularly interesting grape variety. And the nose of this wine is really fascinating. The markers here say potpourri, dried apricot, nectarine rind, peaches, plums, stewed pears. How that nose is so amazing. And that smells to me right now like almost like I used to work in a Russian restaurant and we made a pear tartatin with all of the cinnamon and brown spice and clove, and it would be baked, and on the bottom side it's like this amazing pastry, and there's this like caramel from all of the sugar and the spices. I just put my nose in that glass and I'm like, wow, that is pear tartatin or cobbler or whatever. That's the kind of smells that we're getting there. This is a hybrid obtained by crossing Trebbiano, a Tuscan grape, and Rayon d'Or. That doesn't sound super familiar, but I believe that's from the south of France. And it is something that they can take into colder places and have it grow and reach really wonderful sweetness levels. Now, we have grown Vidal in Napa Valley as well. And in fact, I believe it was Heights, Martha's Vineyard. They made a dessert wine from Vidal for years. They didn't call it Vidal. I think they had a magical name for the dessert wine, but it is a wine that has this kind of spice and beautiful fruit. And in Napa Valley, they almost made it like a late harvest style. So it got kind of figgy, raisin, prune, date type of aromas to it. But here, it's not getting that late harvest character. This is just wonderful ripeness, and then you're getting incredible aromatics off of this wine. 215 grams of residual sugar, but with really high acid, because remember, the fruit is still hanging out there on the vine and very vital. It almost would taste like a table grape. And then shoo, here come the temperatures and it freezes on the vine. Uh, yields are pretty small because we are just crushing the fruit and working with the nectar. So this is a 187. It's a tall bottle, but very thin. And so it's a little goes a long way though. This is perfect for, for people to have a wonderful meal around a bottle of dessert wine. And what's also great is Vidal isn't as hard to grow as, and this producer makes fantastic dessert wines from Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Cabernet Franc, and all of those cost more than the Vidal example. And so I really love Vidal because of the way it creates a dessert wine. That wonderful pear and brown spice combination is phenomenal. You might try it with that type of a dessert. I don't necessarily go for the idea of pairing like flavors with dessert. I think it can get a little too much, but there might be a way to do it where maybe the dessert isn't that sweet and you allow this to dominate and play into the dessert. And that's how I would handle it. Now taste this thing, and the what's a magic about just Canadian ice wine is how long that finish will just go on for miles. Wowzer. Fantastic. I hope you guys are enjoying that. It drives me crazy sometimes when people say they don't like dessert wine. I just don't understand those people, honestly. I know you're out there, but it's these are like some of the most pleasurable moments possible. Having a great dessert wine, you're sitting around, maybe optimally, you're sitting around a fire pit or a fireplace. You got some dessert wine. You got your friends in big, comfortable chairs, sitting on some bear skin somewhere. Faux fur, maybe, if you're not into that. Alex, what did you think of those?
I love this one. Definitely getting a bottle. Can't wait to share it.
Fantastic. let's do some Barsack. And I definitely, when I put this program together, we get the wines decided what we're going to be doing, and then I wait till the day we pour the jars to taste them in order to see which order we want to present them in. And that's why my little slideshow is a little janky. We have a new person making our slideshows, and she just didn't get the memo. So we will improve on that in that regard, but I can adjust here. And we're going now to Chateau Doisy Dane. This wine has always been one of my favorites just for the name itself. And the fact that it's a Barsack. And, you know, any Sauterne that isn't Chateau Yquem is a relative deal. And I will plead with people to consider drinking, you know, if you're going to drink some dessert wine, let's get out there and share some half bottles of Sauterne as often as possible, because wow, this is really hard wine to make, and they have to really go out on the curve pretty far.
Hey, Ian, sorry to interject again. This is actually number 4. We skipped
Yeah.
number 3.
I'm looking at the list that somebody just sent me, and it should be Marsala here.
You just can't wait to get to that Sauterne.
That's it. That's it for sure. All right. You just sit right there, Barsack. Time for some Marsala. And I will also say that, you know, all these are like children. I don't have really a favorite, but the wine I root for in this situation is this Marsala, because I got to go to Marsala last year. And man, talk about a category that just got obliterated by, you know, there's moments in time where Marsala was a really important wine. And then somebody brought it into the kitchen and made some chicken Marsala. And then chefs everywhere had to have some Marsala in the kitchen. So then they started to figure out they had to put some salt in the cooking wine. And that was put in there, not for cooking, but to keep the chefs from drinking it all. So cooking Marsala has salt. And it totally backfired on the category because people stopped drinking Marsala. And that, my friends, is not the end of the story, as the old thing goes. We will go now into my slideshow and talk about this spectacular find, one of my favorite finds of last year. And in fact, next week I'm doing like a rundown of my 6 favorite finds of the year. And this would have been in there if I wasn't doing the dessert wine show this week. I got presented with a new book that's bringing in all of these really amazing wines that are grown completely, or everything in the book is organic or biodynamic or natural. And so they have a very high ethos. And then they've found these absolute top of the food chain renditions. And Marco di Bartoli is absolutely one of the best producers. Small, never was a big grocery brand. This is just always been a top quality producer. We're talking about Sicily, which has got like, you know, this thing's got so many different personalities. It's got 2 volcanoes. It's got 2 airports, because you never know which one's going to be closed down by one of those volcanoes. It's an amazing place to visit. And Marsala is a growing appellation. Oop, just change the slide, trying to show you where Marsala is, way out here. And you're driving around from Palermo. You just take a nice kind of cruise on the coast, and you end up right past Trapani, and you're in Marsala over here. Bush vines grown on the ocean, sand, salt air. The grape is Zabibo. This is a Marsala grape variety. They do make dry wines from Zabibo now, but these were always grown for Marsala production. It is also known outside of Sicily as Muscat d'Alexandria. So it is in the Muscat family. It is a very important Muscat variety. Another cool thing, look at those vines. They are bush vines. They're 45 to 100 years old, grown without any chemicals. Dry farm, totally old school since the 18th century, grown like that. Pretty flat there. That I've actually been in this vineyard, and that stone wall goes right along the road. Very not very populated. It looks like a town that used to have a lot of activity, and it kind of dried up, and now it's kind of a random wine tourist destination. Oh, this is Grillo. I said it was Zabibo too. So we talk about here in the outline of the variety. They brought Zabibo to this area, and Zabibo is a primary grape of Marsala. But then this wine is another grape variety called Grillo, and Grillo is a really fun dry white variety that I carry a number of versions in the store right now. But when they made Marsala, they make the Marsala, they fortify it, they put it in these huge wood tanks and let it just you typically make it in the mass markets in a non-vintage way, which is called a Solera. So they'll take some wine out, they'll add some wine in, and they'll age it in these huge tanks for years and years and years. Some of the Soleras are 100 years old themselves. This particular production is a vintage. So this is a single year, 2018 Marsala. And again, it is 100% Grillo. The things to look for here, if you close your eyes, you can almost smell the saltiness in the air, the intense wind and sun, almost like a sunburn kind of character, scorched fruit that has been punished by some really wonderful. I mean, think of the color, the skin of people that live in Sicily, that darker, and they've got this almost like leathery skin because the sun is so intense, and and grapes can get a little bit of that scorched character to them. You smell it in the nose of this wine. Mandarin peel, vanilla pod, toasted nuts, and this screaming acidity, which is really kind of sets it apart as a dessert wine. Again, this is fortified. You can smell that 18% alcohol. And everything's in proportion here, though. It's got amazing richness, that orange peel, they're saying mandarin, but any kind of orange peel would work for me here. And that vanilla character really got some very lovely nuance and character. And there's something very hypnotic about this. It's got almost like a perfume type of a presence to it. And I really love the way it finishes. It has a length, doesn't finish sour or bitter. And that's part of that Sicilian character as well. And this is a category, again, was huge back in the day. Marsala for days. And in fact, this vineyard probably was in its beginnings planted for, some volume oriented wine. And eventually the vines got old, they got less efficient, but the fruit quality went up. And so now it's isolated into something special. Scorched, sunburnt, blistered, salty. I love it. I hope you guys did too. Here's some more on Grillo. Also planted in Puglia. Let's see. Grillo is not strongly aromatic or strongly flavored wine, but it's best and it's full-bodied, kind of a stringent character. It's got can be bottle aged for benefit, especially as a Marsala. This probably would outlive all of us in this current state. Once you open a bottle of all these dessert wines, by the way, this Marsala will probably last in your refrigerator for a good month and a half. I wouldn't say that it is bulletproof. I might get schooled by the winemaker to have me think differently. But because this is a single vintage wine and not from a Solera, I think this wine has a freshness to it that will fade over time, but the dessert wines are much tougher, and especially something with 18 alcohol. This would mature like a red port or something like that, and probably a good month and a half will last. Here's our producer. 94 points on this wine from Vinous. Oh, they point out a gingery character. Maybe you picked up on that. Baked peaches, hazelnuts, roasted almonds, citrus, cloves, cedar, bitter tinge of coffee grounds. I'd have to drink a lot of this to get to that level. Ridiculously long and staining, yet still fresh, leaves hints of cocoa and butterscotch to linger on the finish. Sounds like he liked it as much as I did. 94 points, $55. Very high ethos, really good producer quality. This is a 500 ml, so it's got a little bit more volume to it than some of the other wines that we've had or will have. All right. Let me check my chat. Is it time for Doisy? It is. Okay, let's do it. Time for Doisy. So I've been working really hard this week because we had to postpone a lot of events and push them off, which is important to do at this moment. For those of you not in Los Angeles, it has not been a fun week in Los Angeles. But I do hope I can say in a couple of days that the fires are behind us. We've made a lot of progress. And I think, I think we're almost there, but you can never know. And, winds can pick up at any point in time and change that prognosis. So we'll wait until we're actually there. And then in March, on the 12th and the 13th, I'm producing a massive fundraiser called LA Fire Fundraiser. Go to lafirefundraiser.com and see the events. We're going to have a day of music, food, and wine, and a day of like 100 restaurants, 100 wineries. Both days will be packed with auctions, live auction, silent auction. We'll even have an online auction that we're hoping to get auction items from all over the world. We're going to tell people to send us your valuables, your jewelry, your whatever you can spare, put it on the auction, and some of it could go online auction. And we are going to try to help a couple of different charities. We've got a fantastic charity running the event with us called Santa Monica Mountain Fund. And they're a local charity. And then we're going to help one of the bigger charities with our various auction elements. And for that reason, I need some dessert wine today because we have been working hard on that, making tons of phone calls and emails and getting our base set up. And so this is going to be particularly nice. Doisy Dane is the producer. Finally, it's time. We've got the 2018 Barsac, second Cru Classé in 1855. There was only one top producer, that's Yquem, and everything else was falling in line. Same family's owned this property since 1924. Story goes, what happened is back in time, I believe it was at Yquem, the owner went away to war and he said, "Don't pick the fruit until I return." And that's why the fruit got botrytis. And when he got back and it was still hanging in the vineyard, he picked it as botrytis and turned it into the dessert wine that it is today. That's the legend of how these wines got started. That was several hundred years ago. Grape varieties here are Semillon, sometimes Sauvignon Blanc, sometimes some Muscadel. But Semillon is what we have here in the Doisy Dane. It is 100% noble rot. Everything grows normally until right about August. Then it gets a little humid, a little rainy, and the mildew or fungus grows on the grapes, sucks the moisture out of the grape, looks pretty unattractive. The botrytis fruit is, if it were on your table at home, you would cut it off the cluster and get rid of it. But if you press it and get this nectar out of it, it has this magical character to it. Semillon is a very interesting grape variety. They also use Semillon in the white Bordeaux blends. And even in places like Napa Valley, they'll plant a little Semillon to make their Sauvignon Blanc a little interesting on the white side, but it is the core of the botcher-sized white wines of Sauternes, and certainly, all Barsacs are Sauternes, but not all Sauternes are Barsacs. Barsac is just a little special because of where it's located. 96 points decanter, silky texture, notable gun smoke and cigar box that deepens the complexity and sense of interest set alongside the citrus, lime blossom, and soft spices. 30% new wood. Does spend some time in wood, and that's why we get kind of a nice oxidative color. And it's a little more punctuated in this bottle, not only because this wine is a half bottle, it's 2018, so 7 years old. The Barsacs and this particular producer can get pretty golden. The freshness is amazing. This is that, those orange candied desserts. They're covered in sugar at the end of a gourmet meal. Sometimes we might even think of them like orange slices at Halloween. Boom, right there. Again, so much wine for the money. So much work. And this is a half bottle. $375. $40. Longevity when you open it, at least 10, 15 days. No, nothing will happen to this wine. Little glass every night. Just sit down to read. It's just like a wine that I think you don't have to wait for the family. You just open this when you want a nice dessert, and maybe every day. And I'm not suggesting a big glass. I just think like a, nice little 2-ounce end of day, probably perfect for digestion. Really wonderful discovery. That is so tasty. I think I said that this Sunday, this class was sold out for a long time. So we'll continue with our wine camp for this Sunday. And that's going to be at the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills. Stop the share. Make sure I'm on the right wine next. We're going to our port wine.
Whoever closed these bottles really put their upper arms into them.
Yeah.
They're pretty tight.
She's on the Zoom tonight. Joe's a weightlifter and she tests me sometimes. She's strong. When we first started doing these, we got a lot of complaints that the jars were leaking. Those complaints went away. Now we have different complaints. You can't get them open, but they don't leak. I'll take the no leak.
Oh, exactly. I had to get my little jar opener. So
Jar opener. Yeah, good answer. This is a 750. This is Kopke. I think you pronounce it Kopk. Some of us will say Kopke. I said Kopke forever until they corrected me about 10 times. So this is a white port. And these guys are the kings of white port. Kopk. I went to their tasting room in Oporto. They do all the old school port bottle styles. This is it. This wine is aged in wood for kind of an average of 20 years. So you're going to have that advanced color. This was not a red wine. This is a white wine that's become, even has kind of a reddish hue, kind of a dramatic blood orange color. We're in the Douro, and this producer started in 1638. Port wine region was the first delineated wine region in the world. The King of Portugal said, if you're going to make port wine, it has to be from here. And he drew around the Douro. This is a magical place. It is like Jurassic Park level stuff. Notice on the hillsides in this picture, those aren't vineyards that are kind of just naturally staggered like that. Those are trellises. Because there's so much stones up there, they have to level each layer of the terrace. There's so much rock, and it is so diverse, and it's really one of the warmest growing zones in the world. And the port grape varietals that grow here have the thickest skins of any grape varieties.
Ian, do you have the slide?
And I'm not showing you the slide either, huh? Okay. I get an F. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. Let me see if I forwarded the slideshow. There's the picture of the map up in the Douro, northern Portugal, very close to, Spain. Of course, Spain surrounds Portugal, but just right up the road there would be where you're getting all your Albarino. And the Douro, Oporto is the town. It's out here on the water, but the grapes grow pretty far back into the river, away from the ocean, and on these really steep hillsides that are all graded. And that's what you can see the picture here of. It is beautiful there. It can get really hot in the summertime, 110 pretty easily. But it does have all 4 seasons, and I encourage people to go in November when it's nice and cool. Probably rains. It is so beautiful. And one of the great things to do is to take a cruise on the Douro River back into the mountains. It is a treasure trove of photos, hillsides, one turn after another, vast vineyard land planted. Like, this is one of the most punishing areas I would think to ever plant. But these tough people did it back from the 1600s. And the English would pull in with their ships, load up on the port, unload the sheep, make some exchanges, and some of them even moved to Porto. So a lot of the houses have English names like Taylor's, Coburn, places like that. A lot of the English even were smuggled in and smuggled out of Porto, depending on when they arrived and when they had to leave. This white port comes from a set of white varieties. The white varieties are probably less than 5% of the varieties planted and the total vines planted in Oporto. So there's not a lot of producers that can make volume of white port. Kopke has made it for a very long time. Orinto, I'm going to mispronounce the second variety, Viosino. Malvasia is the one I can pronounce, and Orinto. The other two, forget about it. Let's see. So we've got some dried fruit, figs, walnut, toasted almond, candied orange peel again. Prevalent note in dessert wine. Again, we're fortifying it just like port. We're at 20% alcohol. There is skin contact during fermentation, during maceration. So this is like one of the old school natural wines, but then they add up to 20% alcohol to it. That probably the fermentations take it naturally to about 7, 8, 9% alcohol. And then they add the rest of the alcohol to arrest all fermentations. And 20 is just the number that port wine decided to go to. It's a little more of a liqueur level. You can smell the alcohol in the nose, but it totally stops fermentations, and it's really a port style. Then this wine sits in large oak casks for different time periods. And what that does is it allows for a lot of evaporation, and some really interesting complexities emerge as the wine ages. Some of the freshness gives way, and you start to pick up some of those aged notes. As I'm talking to you, I drank this wine like 30 seconds ago, and I can still taste it. It has just a ridiculously long, beautiful finish, and really, this is like almost like medicine for some people. Not that it smells or tastes like medicine, but it is prescribed for people that are elderly to drink a little bit of port wine every night before they go to bed. It will help them sleep, helps them with digestion, helps the body relax, and is good in the small amounts. So port wine, they drink more port in a Porto in volume than the entire United States in volume. But we will buy the expensive stuff, so we will drink more dollars on average than they will, because what they're drinking is on the lower end of the scale, the more volume stuff, and very affordable, where we're going to pay for the 20-year aged white port, which can set you back a little bit. Here's a little bit about the grape varieties. Orinto, you see it all over Portugal in some of the white fresh wines that they'll release. I've got a couple of different Vinho Verde with Orinto as a main component. The second one, I would have to memorize a flashcard to even remember this grape. Viosino. And then Giovio is how I'm going to say. That's also known as Godello, which is nice. Godello, I love Godello in Spain as a dry white. It's almost got kind of a Chardonnay-esque body to it. And then Malvasia is planted extensively all over the place, whether you go to Greece, Italy, and Portugal, of course, Spain. Malvasia is a pretty big influence and very important in Madeira, which is also owned by Portugal. Here's the little tasting room I visited in Oporto. They took us upstairs, and they have a beautiful tasting lounge, but you can actually walk right in and buy a bottle. And if you buy, they have like 150 vintages to pick from. And if it's past a particular year, they'll have your name engraved on the bottle too, or spray. It looks like almost like a painted. It's painted on the bottle, and you can have your name put on the bottle, you know, Blackburn's Private Reserve or whatever. 94 points. That color is definitely going to be influenced by some of that skin contact that this wine had early on, but the dense and richness comes from the evaporation, and that nose, blood orange candy. My mouth is salivating like crazy just talking about it. Blood orange candy, orange slices. So let me ask you, the alcohol too much? I think not. I think it's great. Moving into our next wine. Got a couple comments in the box here. One of them was reminding me to show the screen. Thank you. Two of them. And then Natalie says it was delicious. Great. The 20-year Kopke comes in at $118 a bottle, so it is a little more dear than the others. It is a 750. And once you open this bottle, you have a little bit more time here because this wine was oxidized in wood barrels for 20 years. So this is not changing a whole lot anytime soon. I think you can open this up, keep it in your refrigerator for a year, and you won't have any problems. So good mileage. Yeah, Teresa, I agree with you. It does kind of grow on you. It is a slightly acquired taste. And you know, Portuguese and the English have acquired that taste and they love it. But the rest of the world, when they think of sweet, high alcohol dessert wines, they kind of roll their eyes a little bit sometimes. They'll drink it for special occasions, and you know, but you know, this is the type of thing that makes a special occasion. So I love my dessert wine, and this is one of the treasures. All right. Let me make sure I got the right one coming up here. Oh, we're already on our last one. We're going to go to Banyuls. And this has got another great story here. Here we go. All right. Pierre Gaillard. I've had his daughter on a Zoom once. He is a famous Rhone producer. The Rhone is not so far away from the south of France. And so you just head towards the ocean and make a right, and you're going to head into the Roussillon and hit a little place called Banyuls. That's a champagne slide, so we're not going to pay attention to that. New girl will get a phone call tomorrow. But we're in the ocean near Spain, okay? And this picture of these hillsides. It's oversitting the Mediterranean. Really old village, like we're talking very humble little spot. This wine is made from a blend of Grenache and Grenache Gris. They pick it and it's pretty ripe at the time of picking. Then they fortify it and leave it in glass jars because it's heading into November. But they like the influence of the sun and the weather on this wine in glass carboys outside in the rain. And they finish their they come together in this glass facilities and right on the ocean. And it's really a very different type of winemaking experience, very old fashioned. Grenache itself is grown on these very steep terraces there. It is, Grenache is one of the primary, it's probably one of the most planted grape varieties on the planet. I think it used to be number one, but with the growth and importance of Cabernet is definitely taking the number one spot. So probably Grenache is now number two, but it's planted in Spain. They call it Garnacha. You've got it in Argentina, all over the Rhone. The largest single production wine in France is Côte d'Aron. So Grenache is a big, big production wine. And over here near Maury and Rivesaltes is Banyuls. Like I said, Roussillon, Rivesaltes, Moray. They fortify it, put it in the carboys, put them out in the vineyard sometimes. Sometimes it's just in a shay or a patio. Coffee, chocolate, profiteroles. If you're going to have profiteroles, this is fortified, but not as heavy on the alcohol as the port. It says 17%. I'm actually surprised it's that high. I thought it was 16. Profiteroles, you know what those are? They like a little donut with some vanilla ice cream inside and the chocolate sauce on top. This is supposed to be like the wine for a profiterole. I do a lot of chocolate tastings and I love to introduce people to this wine. This is a wine that 9 times out of 10 no one's ever tried before. I think it's enjoyable, easy to like. I won't say that this is like the greatest example of Banyuls. This is a nice kind of value example. At $30, it's a good deal. I have some more pedigree Banyuls. I have 2, and I'm going to tell you right now, most wine stores have 0 Banyuls. I'm really trying my hardest to keep our store. We can't be, the biggest store in Burgundy or Bordeaux or any varietal, heavy area. There's so many to choose from, but dessert wines, I think I can be one of the best spots for dessert wine. And I've got this great elevated version of Banyuls I'm going to show you here. If you if you liked this one, you'll probably love the wine from Christian Renal. I probably, Natalie, you probably did a Zoom with me last year where we tasted this wine. This importer carries several back vintages, so they don't make it every single year at this level, but this is like their best vineyard, and they only make it when it's really a good vintage. So I have a little bit of this guy. This would be kind of the high tier of Banyuls. And then the wine that we were tasting tonight gets a good value representation. But fun with chocolate for sure. I like it with chocolate cake. I don't like any of the other dessert wines as a chocolate reference per se. We think I like chocolate and I'll drink it. I'll drink anything with chocolate. I like actually dry wines with chocolate. I like a nice big Zinfandel, Cabernet, Merlot, Pinot Noir with milk chocolate. I just like dry reds with chocolate. Dessert wines, I probably prefer them with cheese. Getting, sweets to line up with sweet is just too much work. Maybe even skipping the dessert and just having the dessert wine as the dessert is enough. Or having something like a cookie. I am a big believer in chocolate chip cookies. Those I think could go very well with a lot of these dessert wines.
I had one you sent me. It was very good with some of these.
Don't say anything, Teresa, because I couldn't send them to everybody else. I didn't make enough.
Oh, okay. No, I got I thought I got because I did the membership, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have them on time to get them out, and you were the special because we delivered yours a little later than anybody else, but
Oh, well, thank you.
got them to you. Yeah, Al and Natalie, you'll get some at some point this year because you've been a huge supporter. Lisa Test has gotten some, and we'll get them to our supporters for sure. Um, every batch is a little different ride because I don't make them every day, and I sometimes mix up the ingredients, trying different butters and different flours. And the current batch that you got, Teresa, was a little stiffer than I like them, a little softer and a little bendier, but the flavor was pretty spot on. It just didn't have the texture that I like as much.
You make cookies every day and not big as a house?
No, I definitely do not. I make them twice a month, maybe 3 times a month. And I give most of them away. But my wife loves sweets, so that's something I do for her. Well, I thank you guys for helping me make this happen. Challenging week it has been. I feel better already, but this is and now I've got some little tastes that I can put away for the next couple of weeks. I'll have a wonderful selection of things to choose from. I like you to think of dessert wine that way. Um, I do recommend once you open these, just any of them, just keep them in the refrigerator and they'll last a long, long period of time. That port, a year, the Banyuls, a very long time. Um, any of those in the refrigerator, at least a couple of weeks. The Riesling's naturally antioxidative, so probably a good week with a bottle of Riesling. And when you go to Germany to a winery to taste with them, you'll see they'll pull them out of the refrigerator and they'll have the date on them, and some of them are like 10 days old because they put off a little gas and they kind of protect themselves. So Riesling's really an interesting wine to own and to study, and it's like it's a wine from another planet. Um, but there's more about dessert wine, so we'll do this again in the future. we'll continue to shake up the list, and I'm going to continue to try to acquire different things. I don't try to own too many bottles of any of them, but they don't go flying out of the store. But I don't mind owning them for a while either. And so take a look at the full list of dessert wines on the website. And if you're going to have some friends or family over for dinner, make sure you have something to finish the night off with. It will really slow things down and kind of prolong the conversation. And that's kind of the job of dessert wine. Well, that's it for now. I'll be back next week with our top 6 wines of 2024. We'll have a slideshow that's representing that in the order that I want to present it, I promise. And I thank you for your patience with me and hope that LA can get through this crazy week, and then we can talk about some victories next week on Zoom into Wine. Until then, be safe and be well, and go Dodgers.
No, go Giants.
Oh, we're gonna have a new pitcher very soon, Lisa.
Good.
Take care.
Take care.